All right, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going to tackle, a small, simple subject, the entire history of everything. We're drawing from an amazing video by Fun History to take a trip from the very first spark of existence all the way to, well, to you, sitting there right now. So let's just start with the biggest question of all, right? The one that kicks the whole thing off. How do you go from absolute, total nothing to all of this? The billions of galaxies, the stars, the planets. It sounds completely impossible, but the entire story of our universe really does start with one single, unbelievable moment. Okay, let's dive right in at the beginning. In this first part, we're going to speed through the first few billion years, from the instant space itself just popped into being, all the way to the messy, chaotic birth of our own little corner of the cosmos. The very beginning was just this whirlwind of cosmic creation. It all starts with the Big Bang, where space itself just stretched out from this unbelievably dense point. And almost right away, stuff started clumping together into just gazillions of galaxies. Inside them, these massive stars were burning incredibly bright, and then boom, they'd explode, which is super important because that's what created all the heavier, more exciting elements. And then good old gravity started pulling all that stardust together, and voila, you've got planets. And speaking of planets, the way our own moon was formed was just unbelievably violent. Early Earth was not the nice blue marble we know today. It was a big, hot, molten rock. And it took a direct hit from another object about the size of a planet. The collision was so huge it threw a massive cloud of debris into orbit, which gravity eventually kind of swept up into a ball. And that is our moon. And what's wild is that this totally chaotic volcanic world was, weirdly enough, the perfect little survival kit for life. You had volcanoes just constantly pumping out gas, which created our first atmosphere. And this atmosphere acted like a planetary thermostat. It kept Earth from freezing solid every night and from getting totally cooked every day. And, most importantly, it allowed water to stick around as a liquid. So, with the stage all set, it was time for the next big act, and this is arguably the most complex and mysterious thing in the whole universe: life itself. We're about to see how a simple chemical soup gave rise to something as complicated as a city. So, on this early Earth, you've got this big primordial soup of water, and floating around in it are a few other simple chemicals: methane, ammonia, hydrogen. You mix all that stuff together, and you get amino acids. Now, think of these as the fundamental Legos of life. They're the building blocks you absolutely need to make proteins, and without proteins, life just can't happen. But here's the crazy part. How do you get from a simple pile of Lego bricks to a fully functioning city? The jump in complexity is just staggering. As this quote gets at, a single cell is not some simple blob. It's a microscopic metropolis with its own power plants, transportation networks, and factories. It's an entire industrial world, just on a scale you can't even see. And this is the absolute magic ingredient, the thing scientists are still working to fully understand. That very first cell contained a blueprint, its DNA, that allowed it to make copies of itself. This ability to replicate is the very definition of life. It's the engine that allows life to continue, to adapt, and to eventually spread all over the planet. So for a very, very long time, life was, to be honest, kind of boring. Just single cells floating around, doing their thing. But then, in what was basically a geological blink of an eye, everything changed. Welcome to the era of explosions and extinctions. All of a sudden, the planet's oceans went from this quiet, simple place to just loud and complex and full of creatures. Scientists call it the Cambrian explosion. And in a ridiculously short amount of time, life just went wild with diversity, going from those single cells to an incredible array of bizarre and wonderful new animals. I mean, the variety that just popped into existence was mind-boggling. We're talking hundreds of thousands of new species. There were some real evolutionary experiments going on, like one creature that had 5 eyes. This biological Big Bang gave us the ancestors of pretty much all modern animal life: fish, insects, and even the very first plants that were brave enough to make their way onto land. Okay, so that feels like a happy ending. Life has shown up in a big way, it's conquered the land and the sea, everything's thriving. Planetary success story, right? Yeah, not quite. The universe, and the planet itself, had other, much more dramatic plans. It turns out this became the rhythm of our planet. You get a massive, creative explosion of new life forms. Then a terrible disaster strikes, an ice age, a volcano, an asteroid. Most of life gets completely wiped out. And then, from whatever survivors are left, the whole process starts over. This cycle happened again and again and again. And one of the worst setbacks was truly apocalyptic. A supervolcano in what is now Siberia erupted continuously for 1 million years. The sheer scale of that is almost impossible to imagine, and the result was that almost everything on the planet died. It was the closest life has ever come to being completely erased. But life is nothing if not resilient. As the old supercontinent began to break apart, creating new oceans and new climates, the stage was set for the next great chapter in Earth's history and its most famous inhabitants. That's right. After that last big extinction, a new class of reptiles took over the planet. The age of the dinosaurs had begun, and they would rule the Earth for over 150 million years. That is an almost unimaginably long time to be on top. And after all that time, after all that incredible dominance, it only took one really, really bad day. A single huge asteroid slammed into the area that's now Mexico, and in a flash, their reign was over. A 150 million year dynasty, ended by one rock from space. With the giant reptiles gone, there was a huge power vacuum on the planet. This was the moment for a new class of animal that had been hiding in the shadows: mammals. They rapidly diversified to fill every empty niche, evolving into the primates, the whales, the bats we know today, and, of course, a certain type of primate that would eventually change everything. So what separated our ancestors from our closest relatives, the other apes? I mean, their brains are incredibly capable, but the human brain evolved differently. It wasn't just about getting bigger, it was about getting rewired. On the surface, it might not seem like a huge change, but that little bit was everything. That new wiring is what unlocked all the abilities that define our species. The power to think about the future, to communicate complex ideas through language, to build societies, and ultimately to look up at the stars and try to understand how we even got here in the first place. And that brings us right up to today. In this vast 13.8 billion year story, we are the first species on this planet that can actually piece together its own history and consciously shape its future. In a very real way, we are the universe becoming aware of itself. The story so far has been written by physics, chemistry, and biology. The next chapter, well, that's going to be written by us. So, what's it going to say?